So yes, so when you think about competency 7, think about written composition. So when we're talking about boys, so we're talking about the purposes for writing. We have for PI, we have writing to persuade, writing to inform, writing to entertain. All right. So what we're going to go ahead and do is get into our competency breakdown. So once again, I use this study guide 4 through 8 preparation manual because they're going to be changing this test soon. So it's good we are taking it now. All right, so written language composition. The teacher understands that writing to communicate is a developmental process and provides instruction that promotes students' competence in written communication. A, knows predictable stages in the development of written language and recognizes that individual variations occur. Jasmine, can you read B for me?
Yes, one sec. I'm trying to. Okay. Promotes student recognition of the practical uses of writing, creates an environment in which students are motivated to express ideas in writing and models, writing as an enjoyable activity and a tool for lifelong learning.
Wonderful. So another purpose of writing is to just write for fun, right? Free write, to motivate students to want to write, to see it as enjoyable. Abby, can you read C for me?
It knows and applies appropriate instructional strategies and sequences to develop students' writing skills.
Wonderful. So we know at first to get students to start writing, they need to brainstorm, right? So they're going to brainstorm and then they're going to create some type of rough draft. From the rough draft, they need to be looking into revising. And then revising is basically making sure that they're like the thoughts of the paper is clear, that they don't need to switch like sentences or anything like that. And then editing really focus, then you move on to editing, which is talking about like the grammar. So that is the conventions, the punctuation, the commas, right? The adjective placement, the active voice, the passive voice. That's all going into the editing. And then you are ready to publish. So just making sure that you know those different stages in the sequence. When we're talking about brainstorming, we're just trying to get some ideas on paper. D, knows characteristics and uses of informal and formal written language assessments and uses multiple ongoing assessments to monitor and evaluate students' writing development. Jasmine, can you read E?
Okay. Uses assessment results to plan, focus instruction to address the writing strengths, needs, and interests of all individuals and groups, including English language learners.
Wonderful. So we want to make sure we always keep those strategies for English language learners in the back of our heads. Sentence stems, providing visuals, making sure that you might pair them with a buddy in the early stages, providing a word wall for vocabulary. F, uses ongoing assessment of written language to determine when a student needs additional help or intervention to bring the student's performance to grade level based on state content and performance standards for writing in the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, that are known as the T. Abby, can you read G for me?
Yes. Understands the use of self-assessment in writing and provides opportunities for students to self-assess their writings, clarity, interest to audience, comprehensiveness, and their development as writers.
Wonderful. Okay, so understands the importance of students being able to self-assess themselves in writing using a self-rubric, right? And things that they would assess themselves for is clarity, interest to the audience. If you are writing a paper to the senator, your paper is going to be a lot more formal than if you are writing to just your friends, right? So understanding that your audience plays a big part in how your paper is going to sound. And also comprehensiveness. Do your ideas make sense? H, understands differences between the first draft writing and writing for publication. I have to tell my sixth grade students this all the time. Okay, your first draft will not be your only draft. So you
Right.
have your first draft where you just trying to put thoughts on paper. It looks a little rough. It's supposed to. And then writing for publication is when we have cleaned up everything, we have edited, we have revised our paper. And you provide instruction in various stages of writing, including the pre-writing, the drafting, the editing, and revising. So make sure that you know the stages of writing fall in pre-writing, drafting, editing, and revising. I understands the development of writing in relation to the other language arts and uses instructional strategies that connect these various aspects of language. J understands similarities and differences between language. So we have syntax. Somebody remind me, what is syntax when we see it?
Sentence structure.
Perfect. Yes. Sentence structure. Vocabulary used in spoken and written English and help students use knowledge of these similarities and differences to enhance their own writing. Jasmine, can you read K for me?
Understands writing for a variety of audiences, purposes, and settings, and provides students with the opportunities to write for various audiences, purposes, and settings.
Thank you. L knows how to write using voices and style appropriate for different audiences and purposes and provides students with opportunities to write using various voices and styles. Abby, can you read M for me, please?
Understands the benefits of technology for teaching, writing, and writing for publication, and provides instruction in the use of technology to facilitate written communication.
Wonderful. So a lot of what we have heard has a lot to do with writing for the right audience, right? The writing purposes, making sure that students are able to self-assess themselves, making sure they have clarity of ideas, understanding the writing process, knowing that you have the pre-writing, you have the revising stage, the editing stage, just understanding that there is a sequence to it. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get into some questions.
I'll say so. Competency 7 is um. What was competency 7? Let me make sure I get this.
Yes, so with competency 7, we're talking about basically the purposes of writing.
Okay.
So you can be writing to persuade, to inform, to entertain. You're also talking about the different sequential steps of writing, knowing that you need to brainstorm, right? You have the pre-writing, you have the rough draft, you have the revising, you have the editing, right? Understanding that you are writing for different audiences, that your voice is going to change depending on who you're talking to. Your paper might sound different if you are writing an informal letter to a friend versus writing this letter to your principal. So
Okay.
these are kind of some of the themes that we see in competency 7. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the clarifying question.
Mhm.
All right. So this thing right here, what is really going on?
I know.
Yeah, I'm getting it too.
Like, I know they said, a hurricane might be coming our way.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to stay alert to whatever is coming our way these days. It's a lot.
Yes.
All right, all right. So going to competency 7, we're going to have some questions that we're going to walk through together. So the teacher understands that writing to communicate is a developmental process and provides instruction that promotes students' competence in written communication. All right. So here, this is a perfect example of what a question in competency 7 might look like. I have already kind of like annotated and shown you what stands out to me. So with competency 7, a classroom teacher focuses on voice while writing letters to state representatives. The teacher's instruction includes the importance of A, presenting clear and focused ideas, B, attending to word choice. C, using formal register to address an audience. D, displaying one's personality while writing. So when we're talking about voice, it's basically like the tone of your writing, right? And this question is addressing voice while writing letters to state representatives, right? So knowing that, the teacher's instruction includes the importance of presenting clear and focused ideas. Yes, you want your paper to have clear and focused ideas, but if we're talking about voice as it pertains to state representatives, then that is not the big overarching idea. So A would be wrong. B, attending to word choice. Once again, word choice is important in your paper, right? As you get older and you develop your thoughts, you want words that really speak to what you're trying to say. So you might move away from words like sad and mad and bad, right? That doesn't really display what you're trying to say. But we're talking about voice, and we're also talking about how a teacher would focus on voice when they are writing letters to state representatives. C, using formal register to address an audience. Okay, so formal register, your paper is a lot more serious. The audience is a state representative. So C makes sense to me. D, displaying one's personality while writing. No, it would be C, using formal register to address an audience. So the correct answer is C, voice reflects the tone of the writing. And tone is impacted by the audience. So make sure if you're taking notes that you write down, make sure it says competency 7, that voice reflects the tone of writing, right? And tone is impacted by the audience. If your audience is, kids and they want to be entertained, then it's going to look different than if you are writing to a state representative. Your tone is going to be serious and formal, right? All right. Question 2. A 4th grade teacher would like her students to complete a book report using a variety of media tools. So we need to complete a book report. This is what stood out to me, using a variety of media tools. Which of the following activities would best, this is the key word because you're going to have one that's close, but best, promote the ways the language, medium, and presentation contribute to the message. So a 4th grade teacher would like her students to complete a book report using a variety of media tools. So not just one, a variety, right? An oral presentation in front of the class. And we know oral presentation would be the student just standing in front of the class and talking.
Mm-hmm.
Think about if that is what a variety of media tools is. B, a book trailer with audio and visual effects. So we have a book trailer. I'm going to highlight that with audio and visual effects. I'm going to highlight oral presentation. A Venn diagram comparing 2 books. Think about if that encompasses a variety of media tools in a poster presentation. So which one would you choose?
B.
B, right? That makes the most sense to me. So a book trailer is a contemporary alternative to a traditional book report. So instead of them just turning in some paper with citations, they are able to turn that book report into a book trailer, which has audio visuals, and it also has other media to appeal to the audience. They might have a visual component, a video, right? Talking about the book. 3, a 6th grade teacher plans a research report in which students will use a variety of resources to produce a written report. The teacher informs students that if they directly quote an author or a source, they must, we have A, include a reference page at the end of the paper. So it's important that you focus on this part. The teacher informs students that if they quote an author or a source, they must. Right, so the correct answer is going to be specific to if they directly quote, right, an author or a source. What must they do? So we have A, include a reference page at the end of the paper. We have B, include a page number. C, use APA formatting. D, reword the quote and include a page number. So I'm gonna tell you right now, if we are using a direct quote, there's no need to reword the quote because that's called paraphrasing, right? So we know D would be wrong. So even if even if they didn't use a direct quote, if you are taking anything from a book, right, you don't necessarily have to use an APA format. You can use MLA, right? So just because you directly quote an author doesn't mean you have to use a particular format. So we know C is wrong. So what do you think would be the correct answer if students are directly quoting an author or a source? So they are directly quoting an author.
Would it be A?
So we got A. Okay. So with this one, A is pretty close. I'm so glad we weren't in C or D. So it's going to be B. So just know, right, if you are directly quoting an author or a source, right, for a written report, you need to make sure that you have included a page number. So let's go through this. Answer A is incorrect. Eliminate this answer because the reference page at the end would be required at the end of the report, regardless of direct quotes versus indirect quotes. So even if you had indirect quotes, you would need a reference page. This answer was very specific to direct quotes. And because you would need a reference page whether you use direct quotes or indirect quotes, right? It's not right. But you would still need a reference page, but this question was specific to what? Direct quotes. So with direct quotes, when using a direct quote, the student must include a page number from when the quote was found. So did you get the quote from page 1, 2, or 3? I think this is great for you to write down just so like you remember. If it is specifically talking about direct quotes, it's page number, right?
Okay. I'm looking at my notes.
If they're talking about direct quotes, indirect quotes, you would have a reference page. But if it is specific to direct quotes, then it is about the page number. All right, Abby, let me know if you want me to hold the slide for a few seconds. Are you still writing?
I wrote it down.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. A teacher uses the pie analogy to teach her students about author's purpose. The acronym stands for the most common purposes. The P stands for persuade, the I stands for inform, and the E stands for, what do y'all think?
B, entertain.
Perfect, entertain. We were listening, yes. And this is exactly how these questions are gonna look and sound on the test. So, yep, entertain was absolutely the correct answer. The 5th grade class has been researching and writing about a topic. Which of the following is the most important for the teacher to include when, so we're gonna highlight most important, for the teacher to include when instructing students how to cite sources. So I want you to read this question, right? Look at the answer choices, kind of highlight in your mind the key words, and then tell me what do you think.
D's not it.
Right. We know D is ridiculous, and in your
D is not it.
yes.
And this is where on the test it would get tricky for me because, like you say, you want to choose like the most important.
Yes. So let's talk through it a little bit. So we know D, the teacher should teach the students to plagiarize, is absolutely incorrect. And we're looking at most important. So the fifth grade class has been researching and writing about a topic. Which of the following is most important for the teacher to include when instructing students how to cite sources? So we've seen a question like this previously, and we knew that C, we know D is wrong. And also with C, was that the most important thing to do with the last question when they were talking about citing sources, APA?
No.
No, right? They use the same stuff, just saying it different ways. So we know C is wrong. B, the teacher should teach students to use quotations to support ideas and to document sources. So the teacher should teach students to use quotations and support ideas and to document sources. A, the teacher should instruct students to use multiple sources. So which one do you think would be most important when you are citing sources? Is it the multiple sources or is it being able to use quotations to support your ideas? What's the most important?
Would it be A or no?
So
I was going B.
B.
yes, so it would
That's
be
what I was thinking.
right because, and this is where it gets tricky, right? Because
Yeah.
both of them are correct, but one is the most correct. So yes, you do want to teach students to use multiple sources, but they can't use multiple sources if they're not equipped, if they don't know how to use quotations to support
Okay.
ideas. Now they have a whole bunch of multiple sources and none of them support their ideas. So it's kind of like a building block. Kids can't tell you the theme of a story until they know the main idea, right? So it's the same thing with here. They need to be able to pull out quotations that support ideas before they move on to using multiple sources. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we have read the written student summary below to answer the 3 questions that follow. So after reading Number the Stars by Louis Lowy, a 5th grade student writes the following summary. Number the Stars is set during World War II and is about Anne Marie Johansen and her Jewish family. The family had to escape from Copenhagen to Sweden to avoid being deported by Nazis. Based on the summary, the student will benefit most from instruction in which of the following skills. So I'm going to show the answer choices and then come back to it so that you can read it again. A, identifying the main character. Identifying the setting. Making personal connections. Providing the beginning, middle, and end. So let me go back. Based on the summary, the student will benefit most from instruction in which of the following skills. So I recommend that you read what's in red, and then I'll give you about 30 seconds to skim through and move it to the next slide. All right, I'm gonna go to the next slide. What do you think?
I'm gonna say D.
All right. D is absolutely correct answer, right? Because when we go through, okay, none of the stars is set during World War II, and it's about Anne Marie Johansen and her Jewish family. The family had to escape from Copenhagen to Sweden to avoid being deported by Nazis. It's just a little bit. It's not all over the place, right? We know what they're trying to say, but there's no beginning, there's no middle, and there's no end. So they need to work on that. We don't know what happened to them after, right? So being able to make to provide that beginning, middle, end will help them with the summary. Nice work. All right. So then we have this takes us. It says question number 1, but we're still in competency 7. A teacher reviews the following transitional words and phrases with students. If, then, as a result, and therefore. With that choice of transitions, the teacher is best preparing students to write a composition using A list of steps, B, descriptive or specific example, C, cause and effect pattern, or D, sequence of events. Read it again and then tell me what you think.
Okay, I'm gonna go with C. Cause and effect pattern.
Cause and effect. Absolutely, right? So we know anything that's talking about therefore, because, right? That's all transitional phrases. Absolutely. All right. So we have 2. Ms. Colgate notices that her students are struggling with making decisions to improve their writing. They understand how to make their stories longer, but they are leaving some parts vague. So I'm going to highlight they're leaving some parts vague. That is the initial problem here, right? Vague. To best improve the student's revision process, Ms. Cognet should teach the students how to make use of which of the following. Go ahead and look at it and let me know. Take your time.
Would it be A?
We said, what did we say?
A, but I have trouble a lot with this competency.
Okay,
B?
yes, I know. All right, so let's look through it. So we're saying we have A and we have B, which makes me very hopeful because that means that we are very close, right? So Ms. Cognet notices that her students are struggling with making decisions to improve their writing because it's vague, right? To best improve the student's revision process, Ms. Cognet should teach the students how to make use of which of the following. So we have A, a list of sparkle words, which are more precise synonyms for the words used most frequently in their stories. So vague could mean, vague is not necessarily bland words, it's just they're struggling with details, right? Because it's very like vague. So that would be a box and explode strategy in which students draw a box and make and box around a main idea in their story and then add details to expand or explode the main idea. Does that make sense? So when it's vague,
Yes.
yes.
Because which will help them, it's kind of like, in a way, like brainstorming in a way.
Yeah.
So because if the student can jot some ideas and kind of like expand on those details, it can kind of, make the paper more meaningful and understandable, So
Absolutely.
that's how I look at it.
Yes, absolutely. And we just know when things, great explanation, Jasmine. When it is vague, they're struggling with details. So we just want to add that to our box, to one of our strategies for competency 7, box and explode strategy. They are struggling with details. All right. A language arts teacher wants students to have an opportunity to write for an authentic audience and purpose. So authentic meaning true to them. The assignment that best achieves the teacher's goal is writing A. So this would be something that is authentic to the student. Review an imaginary movie from the point of view of a critic. B, sympathy letter to a character in a story who is in an argument with a family member. C, letter to the principal stating a personal opinion about a school-related issue. D, front page newspaper article about a true event in students' lives. So a language arts teacher wants students to have an opportunity to write for an authentic audience and purpose. So we have here imaginary movie. Think about if that's authentic to you. A sympathy letter to a character. Once again, is this an authentic audience and purpose? Right? C, letter to the principal stating a personal opinion about a school-related issue. Can this be authentic and genuine to the student? A front page newspaper article about a true event in students' lives. Think about if this is specific enough for that to be the right answer, or is it too general?
It is kind of, and see what I'm saying? That is kind of general, because what about student lives? Exactly.
Exactly.
So I will go with
you would go with C?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? Now we're thinking along the lines of the test, right? Because you don't want to think, if something is genuine and it's authentic to the students, you don't want it to be too general, because now it's like, okay, how is just writing a front paper newspaper article about a true event in student lives? What type of event? And is it fair to say that that event is going to be true to every student's life, right?
But you'll get confused on that test with front newspaper. So you would see, a person could see that and think, authentic or something.
They could see that, but you have to remember, authentic to the students, right?
Right.
Students is the main idea here, like the what you really want to hold on to. So we know if students are writing a personal opinion about a school-related issue, the key word in C was personal, right? Because and the key word in the question was authentic, right? So when we were able to link those two words together, it made more sense. A front page newspaper article, what would have gotten me about D was a true event, right? We were like, oh, okay, that's genuine. But then when I keep reading in students' lives, that's too general.
Right.
Does that relate to everybody's life? All right, nice work. Alrighty. So let's kind of look at the rationale. Option C is correct because the audience is real and the students are writing in their own voice about a subject of personal importance. So D, talking about the newspaper, this is the rationale that they gave. D is incorrect because front page newspaper articles do not focus on events in students' lives. So the activity is not an authentic writing task. All right. Alrighty, so this is one where we're going to have to read through first. So take your notes because we're going to move on to the answer choices. So use the information below to answer the questions that follow. These students in Miss Afzali's class have written personal narratives. Read the following excerpt from one student's narrative. As I skulked through the door, I could smell my mama's homemade bread floating out to me from the kitchen. The warm smell of yeast wrapped around me like a warm, cozy blanket. When I was younger, I always wrapped myself in this blanket my grandma made for me whenever I was sad. That blanket always made me feel better. Being at home made me forget about the day's trouble. I felt comforted by the love that I knew was waiting for me in that kitchen. So take some time to read it. I'm going to go to the answer choices and then we can flip back to it. During the writing conference, which of the following questions should Ms. Avalis ask to best help the student revise the paragraph? Do you use enough vivid words? Is the tone appropriate for the piece? Is the paragraph focused on one idea? Do you maintain the same verb tense? So let's go back, read it, and then we'll go back to the answer choices. All right, so I'm going to move it to the next slide.
Do we answer?
Yes.
I'm thinking C.
C? Okay. So C is absolutely going to be correct, right? Because this question leads the student to focus on the main idea of the paragraph and eliminate the distracting information in the third and fourth sentences. So if we look, as I skulked through the door, I could smell my mama's homemade bread floating out to me from the kitchen, right? So we have, we're talking about her mama's homemade bread, and then the warm smell of yeast wrapped around me like a warm, cozy blanket. That still talks about the bread, right? When I was younger, I always wrapped myself in this blanket my grandma made for me whenever I was sad. Now we're starting to talk more about the blanket. That blanket always made me feel better. And then we talk about home. Being at home made me forget about the day's troubles. I felt confident by the love that I knew was waiting for me in that kitchen, right? So they try to tie it all back in the last sentence, but they go from mama's homemade bread to the blanket to grandma and how it made her sad to being at home made me forget about the day's troubles. It's kind of all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the teacher would really want to center and focus her ideas on one main idea and then the supporting details. All right, so this one right here, this is competency 6, so we don't have to worry about this one. All right, so perfect. An elementary teacher uses sentence stems to assist English language learners' reading and writing skills. This activity might also promote students' writing development by helping students write as an effective tool of communication. So we need to remember, what does it specifically help students to do, right? Because you can get tripped up in like the general gist of, you know, what it does, but sentence stems play a very specific role. Don't forget that. A, helping students view writing as an effective tool of communication. B, helping students understand writing conventions. C, helping students understand letter sound correlations. D, helping students build an understanding of syntactic structure. So I'm going to highlight what I think is important. Helping students view writing as an effective tool of communication. Helping students understand writing conventions. Is this helping students with commas and
No.
periods? Helping students understand letter sound correlations. Are we talking about the alphabetic principle? Helping students build an understanding of syntactic structure. Are we talking about sentences? Think about it. And what do we normally have students use sentence stems for? So we know, A, helping students view writing as an effective tool of communication. That's very general. That's very broad. They're doing a very specific thing, which is using sentence stems to assess English language learners, right? That cannot be made to think that just because they're using sentence stems, that's helping students view, right? Another key word is view writing as an effective tool of communication. A student can use sentence stems and still not understand how it's an effective use of communication. Helping students understand writing conventions. Jasmine, you already said that's not true. We're not talking about commas. We're not talking about periods. Helping students understand letter sound correlations. No. D, helping students build an understanding of syntactic structure is absolutely correct, right?
That's what I was thinking. Helping with the syntactic structure. Yeah.
We talk about that all the time, right? Those strategies for English language learners never go away. It is a trend throughout the test. Just like those informal and formal assessments, you hear about assessments all the time. It is a trend throughout the test. So it's going to be certain concepts that you don't just see in one competency. They live from competency to competency. Strategies for ELL students are going to go from competency to competency.
Right.
Same thing here. All right. So we have time for one or two more questions. So this will be either our last or second to last. So a fourth grade student is struggling with writing and the parent would like ideas about how to help. Which of the following might the teacher recommend? So a fourth grade student is struggling with writing and the parent would like ideas about how to help. Which of the following might the teacher recommend? So I want you to read through here, look at what is highlighted in red, and then tell me what do you think. So when we talk about environmental print, that's like basically when a parent will have a student read the labels on a can, right? Or any labels that's in the grocery store. That's environmental print.
A, would it be because they're writing there?
Exactly. Look at you catching up on those clues.
Yeah, I was kind of lost in this this competency. So A, I think it would be A.
I agree.
Absolutely correct. There we go. Now we're thinking on the lines of competency 7. A is the correct answer. By using letter writing as a form of communication, the parent is supporting writing skills in a meaningful and effective way. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So this one is going to take more than what we have time for. All right. So with this one, we have, and the answer has already been displayed, and I'm perfectly fine with that because this is very important, and I really just want you to get the information with this one. So which of the following activities is most appropriate for students to do during the draft phase of the writing process? So remember, with this competency, we also need to know the sequential writing process. Of course, kids will probably go in their own process in their own way, but there is a writing process to help guide them. Right? So when we're in the drafting phase, we just want them to get words down on paper. Now, with the drafting phase, it's not about using a thesaurus to replace boring words, because that's under revising. It's not about brainstorming ideas related to the topic, because that goes with pre-writing. It's not about circling words that may be misspelled, because that's editing. It is about getting words down on paper. That deals with the drafting process. Okay? All right, guys. So I'm leaving that on the screen just in case you're taking notes. That's going to conclude today's session with Competency 7. The next time we meet is going to be on Monday, and we're going to work on Competency 7 some more, just to make sure that we really, really got it, because I know as we get to these lower domains, we really, really got to stay on them a little bit more just to make sure we really have it. So we will be going through Competency 7 on Monday. We're going to do a quiz after we finish. If everybody's good with their quiz, we're going to move on to Competency 8. We are moving on up there slowly but surely, and we're going to be good to go. If there's nothing else, ladies, you have a good rest of your night. I am going to upload this video, so if you want to go back and look at it, it'll be there for you.
Okay.
All right, y'all have a good rest of your night. Bye.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.